City of Rockaway Beach Planning Commission meeting on Thursday, November
This meeting is being recorded.
She graduated, so now she had to sit there for a couple of weeks. You know, she's shipping out to Mississippi tomorrow for meteorology school.
It'll be interesting to see her and have that
That would be fun. So we'll keep tabs together. Because they're both the same age.
On her vote for CS is neighbors with my boss's daughter-in-law's full family. Like, that's how small this world is.
City of Rockaway Beach City Council workshop on Wednesday, December 11th, 2024 at 4:30 will come to order. Let's report who's in attendance. Council President Cheek. Councilor Franken.
Here.
Councilor Hayes. Councilor Martine.
Here.
Councilor McGinnis.
Here.
And Mayor McNeely is present. Workshops are intended to allow for preliminary discussions by the City Council and staff. Workshops are held to present information to the council so that the council is prepared for upcoming regular meetings. Workshops are subject to Oregon's public meeting law and must be noticed accordingly. No final city council decisions are made during workshops. The public is encouraged to attend workshops but may not participate unless expressly asked. So we'll start with 3A, discussion of site host agreement with EV charging solutions for electric vehicle charging stations at Anchor Street parking lot. City Manager Shepherd.
All right. I just gotta say, I don't know how we got all the way almost mid-December already. It's incredible. Really is. So anyway, so in your packets, you should have had the proposed site host agreement.
It's a fun read.
Yes. Yes. So between the City of Rockaway Beach and EV charging solutions for the operation and maintenance of 9 electric vehicle charging stations for the Anchor Street parking lot. And I'll just be upfront and say that both the attorney and I, we find this contract to be, they propose very problematic.
Where does it say 9?
Yeah, I think it's on the first page. It talks about 4 DCFC, so that's and each of those serve 2.
Oh, that's a
and 1 level 2 station, so that's 5.
The stations serve 2 spots, so
4 number 2. So that gives you 8.
Yeah, and
Good morning.
I think the
multiplier.
yeah, and then again in Exhibit B, on the last page, second to last page, talks about estimated parking spaces of the line. But anyway, we don't feel that we can't work with EVCS to produce a better document to bring back to you all, but it's going to take a little bit of work. So what I'd like to do tonight is kind of go over some of the assumptions we had about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, on how we wanted to use the parking lot for events and the impact that the charging station could have. Make sure that all of that still has a green light before we put any work into, negotiating this contract to make it better for Rockaway.
And just to review here before we do that, get into those specifics, Luke. A grant is paying for all of this, correct?
Yeah, so EVCS, it's a federal grant, and it's kind of neat. It's a program that stretches from Washington down to California, and I think there were 12 sites in Washington that were selected, and then 2 in Oregon, and all along 101. I believe Seaside was the other city. And I think
Awesome.
So
And you say they're paying the electric bill.
Yes, they'll pay for power, install, maintenance, all the day-to-day operations they would handle. So it's pretty hands-off for Rockaway.
Good.
You know, our job is to provide a place that's open and available, and usable for their
Make
equipment.
sure it's
How do they, excuse me, how do they monitor them? How do they know when one gets broken? Is it electronic?
Yeah, I would imagine it's both electronic, and then there's probably some sort of reporting system.
Because my thought is if somebody backs into them over a weekend and we have a broken one and they're electric,
Yeah.
are we gonna have to turn them all off? Is there a master switch where we can turn each one off?
That's a great question.
The way it reads, we're not, nor even a third party, not to touch them as the host site. It's only EBCS.
So that would mean I take it that they have maintenance people stationed along the coast that could manage it, or PUD might come out and turn the electricity off or something.
And those would be great questions for Charlie later tonight.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
I'm sure there's a building circuit breaker that would kill it.
But the idea is the city would be almost completely hands off, except for maybe some reasonable steps.
That
Security,
makes
or
sense.
notifying them if there's some breakers that we know that we see.
My question is, you don't see that many electric vehicles around here. Now, the one they put in Fred Meyer's years ago, I've only seen it used once. You know, they took out a nice cart rack and everything, put an EV charging station there. I've seen it used once, and that's been what, about 8 years they put it in there?
However, Tom, I was just reading with Luke this week and I told him this. OPB ran an article, I think it was last week, that said that Oregon surpassed 100,000 licenses, DMV licenses for EV vehicles. And it was like 102,000 and something, and we were the third highest in the United States.
Good.
So my goal is to get those 102,000 people to come to Rockaway.
Doesn't it?
And
Visit. Yeah.
tie that into tourism, because people won't go this way if they can't get all the
Yeah.
way to where they're going. So this is a way to draw those types of folks.
I have seen people lined up outside the candy store. There's one at the candy store and the ice cream store area. I've seen in the summertime, I've seen cars lined up there waiting for their chance to plug in.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So these will go on, and we can ask Charlie, great first name. How many apps are there? But in Carl with apps that becomes like to a moth. Charger. Charge Rockwood Beach. Pull in, they plug in. Oh, I've got some time on my hands. Oh, there's the tiebreaker. Maybe the roastery is open. Oh, Flamingo Gyms looks interesting. I think it's going to Councilman Gibbons. So I think we wouldn't normally stop you and give us a shot.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, with that, I pulled some old slides from about a year and a half, 2 years ago on the original plan for Anchor Street. And Melissa, if you go to the next slide. And so we had identified these parking spots. It was 8 at the time. I actually modified this to show 9. This is where the 9 EV charging stations would be placed. So that's it'd be on the south side, up against the warehouse that Flamingo Gyms have. That's where the charging stations would go. They'd supply power those parking spots for charging, and that's where the big 3-phase 480 volt power comes in. It comes in that bottom corner there of the lot. So it makes sense to have them there.
Did they have that all roughed in?
No.
Also, that to kind of.
Yeah, also paid for by them. Next slide, please. And how we anticipated using this for events, we thought we'd be able to rent this, let this site out for events, and so we have 120 by 50 foot square foot area. It's got power and some utility hookups there. And the nice thing about having a spot open, utilized there is you can still use the parking lot. You can still access the playground, the restrooms, but still have an event, a small to medium sized event, farmers market or wherever we want to have. And, next slide, Melissa. And so the idea was we could hold events, we could have charging stations, and still keep the parking lot open for use, and the restrooms for use, and have charging stations and events all at the same time. That was the idea, and that's for the most part what we have to maintain if we want to keep the charging stations. We have to make sure they're available and open. The only problem would be if we want to have many events each year, where we have the whole site occupied, like the trunk or treat we had. I talked to EVCS a little bit. They don't have any issue with maybe 3 times a year we can take up the whole site for maybe a city sponsored event, a big event. But for the most part, we have to stick to what we had here. So when we rent it out to other organizations, we have to limit them to that center spot, the 120 by 50 square foot, 120 by 50 foot area.
How about Rockaway Beach Resort? Now they're gonna use it for overflow parking.
Well, we haven't decided that yet.
Okay.
Asking.
So I think it's great timing that that's at this,
Mhm.
we talked about that at this meeting too, because that'd be another contributing factor we have to take into account for this. But I wanted to make sure this is still where everybody was at. This still has the green light. So I can take that information back and work with the attorney and EVCS to get a contract negotiated.
So how is it enforced that they're left open? Is that up for our policing, for our sheriff's police?
I don't believe we'll have any part of that.
Okay.
Any thoughts to having less than 9?
Originally it was 8. And they've asked for 9 this time. That's something we can push back on, is the number. I think we need to keep to 8. So those 4 DC fast charging stations. That 9th one, I think we could push back on that.
Although it would generate some revenue for the city, and one space isn't going to change the experience that much for people coming to park in the parking lot. So,
and what I asked Charlie about that, the 9th spot, and what they said was the level, the 9th one would be the level 2 charger, and it's just more compatible with many other vehicles. And I don't know anything about electric vehicles. I'm just telling you what I heard. But I don't know that necessarily means it needs its own spot.
So you guys, several of you did the trunk or treat. What are your thoughts?
Well,
And we still have the trunk or treat.
But just based on that being limited to 3 times a year potentially.
so I don't know that this year was a good model because it was pouring rain sideways, and not everyone who had a trunk open stayed. But initially, before the rain came, I did notice that the end ones, like the out arrow end ones on the 9 there were some of those slots that weren't used. And
it's more than just using the spots, it's cars coming through the spots.
Luke and I talked about that, how we can redesign that and make that work. But
For events, I struggle with kids and cars and
no, there were people everywhere. So
if they're comfortable giving us 3, that's the number of citywide events where we could do it. It worked very well for trunk or treat. We want to give that up. I'm certainly comfortable with that, and to your point, we have that other space that once we're ready to sort of advertise it and promote it, we've got that available to be used.
But if we, that's correct, so for something like trunk or treat, which is a really large event, if we have that as one of the weekends that's blocked off that they're not used, then that would take care of that.
What other space are you talking about?
Not sure.
You said,
Oh, that middle space, we've never really developed procedures and how we're gonna promote it, but that's available for people to reserve, put on some type of event.
And
That doesn't conflict with this EV charging
does
station.
it feel reasonable, or is that like, is someone gonna walk down, I mean, we can't see it right now, but is that reasonable to have an event in such,
I wish I had.
I'm just trying to be pragmatic and I'm totally for chargers, and it's one.
the trunk or treat didn't use that middle part very much. We had the music set up there. We had the giveaway pumpkins on a truck, on a
The
pickup,
hot dog,
and we had the hot dog there.
let's not forget the hot dog.
So we didn't use it for cars with trucks that people were coming to. So just thinking back to what it was used for, it accommodated the Lions Club's infrastructure that they had. It accommodated the giveaway pumpkins. It accommodated several spots for the music.
There were a couple of cars on the southeast corner of that center rectangle that we're giving out to.
I don't see it accommodating something big like the InCam's music festival that we have in the Wayside.
No.
So there would still be a need to use the Wayside for events too.
This is just
This is
another
just
option.
another option.
And there's also discussion about Phyllis Baker as coming to events.
That's gonna be a work in progress, I think, for us to get that park up and running. It needs a lot of work. I mean, immediately. Something that we could use immediately.
Anyways,
Parking is not great over at Phyllis.
I'm comfortable moving forward with an arrangement.
Yeah.
I think having these EV charging stations will be a plus for us, and if we can get X number of, again, I can ask them this question on the apps where they're saying we have charger stations. If we say it's going to be blocked out for a day, do they then take them off the app to show that they're not? Because what I don't want is tourists to arrive expecting to have a charging station available to them.
Getting bad.
Yeah, that's a bad experience. So that would be my own concern.
Well, if I had an EV, I'd have a portable cord in my trunk. Where you just plug into a 110 outlet someplace
Well, that's
if you had to.
but I don't want them to arrive thinking there's charging stations available and find trunk or treat there and they go.
Have you looked at their app? And I think that, I know I camp a lot, and I can get onto state parks in Washington and Oregon and different places and look at their information, and it'll tell me exactly what spots are open, which ones are full, when they're open, and all that kind of stuff. I would assume this would have something similar to that.
Anybody not want us to move forward with this?
I think that's a great
One
idea.
more question, EVCS is well established in several of these elsewhere. We're not their first, right? I mean, the contract reads like we're not their first.
Yeah, I don't believe that to be true, but I don't know for certain.
Well, I think the economics of it would be, if we want to do this, and the economics of it would be difficult to offset, that it's grant funded by a federal grant, maintenance is provided and by them, and installation, yeah.
I can't imagine why we'd pass it up, really. It's an advantage to our city, no matter which way we go. I mean,
Yeah.
if we go this
There's probably some risk that EVs won't catch on. It's a fairly long-term lease, but I think that's fairly minimal.
We can work the bugs out and see how popular they are. And maybe when we are having a function, leave 2 stalls open or something. So they get scooped in there.
Well, we're writing a contract now, we can negotiate pretty much everything, can't we?
Within reason.
Yes. I don't.
Okay, so I'll take this back and we'll get a better.
Few observations about the contract. I really, and we can ask Charlie to understand more about number 11 signage. What exactly are they proposing they're going to do with signage in our town? I'd like to have some.
We have an ordinance for all.
And one is potentially we're going to consider amending. So that was one. And the other thing, and this is pretty. I mean, this is I've dealt with this in contracts. The disputes are set right now to be by the laws of California. I'm guessing our attorney is going to want to be by the laws of Oregon.
Oh yeah, there's probably. Yeah. There's a lot, and yeah. No, absolutely, it'll definitely be Oregon on that one. Sure.
Okay. All right, then we move on to B. Review of Resolution 2024-49 authorizing the city manager to execute safe drinking water revolving loan fund grant contract for forest management planning and appraisal for the Jetty Creek watershed.
All right. You want me to kick this one off?
Yeah, go ahead.
Let's see. So I think you all been aware of this grant award for a little bit of time, a few months. And so it's going to cover the next step of our Jetty Creek acquisition project. Once we complete the source water protection plan, we'll kick up the forest management plan development, appraisals, and get to the threshold of being ready to make a purchase. And so that's what this is going to cover. But like the IFA funding for Nadana Beach, OHA made the award, and then they handed off to Business Oregon to handle the contracting and financial documents. And so that's where we are right now. So it's a $70,000 award. And they call it a forest stewardship plan instead of forest management plan. So we'll contract with a sustainable forestry consultant to develop a forest stewardship plan. Obtain property appraisals from the lower half of the Jetty Creek to the lower half of the Jetty Creek. Conduct the engagement that's paid for, so it'll be a very similar process to the source water protection plan development advisory committee, but it'll be the forest management plan committee or something along those lines that will spin up and work on the forest management plan. So pretty straightforward, and it's nice to have funding secured for the next step in our project here. And I'll answer any questions you all have. I just want to point out one thing that later on tonight, you all will have a chance to look at this, adopt this resolution 2024-49. But we're not asking you to authorize execution of this particular contract. I'm asking for authorization to execute a contract. The reason being is a few things have changed since we submitted the application. And so what we're doing now on page 12 of the contract table under Exhibit C, it talks about a yellow book appraisal. And so since we've applied for this grant, we've also applied for the forest legacy grant and about to apply for the OWEB grant, which those two will combine to give us money for purchase of the lower half of the watershed and the yellow book appraisal. The EPA grant we've already applied for will fund, in addition to a number of things, purchase of the lower half of the watershed and a yellow book appraisal. And so what we're doing now is we're working with DEQ and OHA to modify the scope to not specifically call it a yellow book appraisal, but the work that leads up to a yellow book appraisal, which Crews and valuation analysis. It's the preemptive work to get to the appraisal. Those are costly as well. But anyway, so we're working with them to see if we can modify the scope from Yellow Book appraisal to timber crews valuation analysis. And if it's successful, it'd be nice to have the authority to sign that and keep the project moving and kind of separate it from isolate it from the kind of the monthly pace of monthly council meetings.
You said
it's already back.
DEQ and O.
I'm sorry, the Oregon Health Authority.
So it was. Question back to medical insurance. So I thought I got that wrong. Anyhow.
Yeah, and Business Oregon is happy to make the change, but we are modifying the scope, so it's got to go back to the original agency. And I don't know if that takes a week or if that takes a month. But it'd be nice to separate that process from the council meeting schedule.
How soon would the council be expected to have appointed a citizens committee to start working with this project?
I think we have 2 years, but yeah, so there'll be some overlap. So once the SPDAC committee will recommend approval of a first water protection plan, that'll go to the council and then be shipped off to DEQ. And there'll be some kind of a approval process. So during that process, we can start to spin up the next phase. Yeah. So it'll be first half of 25 easily.
Madam Shepherd, on page 4, bottom number 7, this again, improvement enterprises recipient will implement the good faith effort for solicitation and contracting for the advantages enterprise described in the Safe Drinking Water Handbook. We're prepared to do that, fulfill that obligation in the contract.
Yes.
Probably talked about page 11, exhibit B, the 4 point plan best management practices for riparian buffers, roads, culverts, landslide prone slopes, any planned timber harvests, which that language gets me a little nervous. Who's involved with this part when we get to this level of the actual project? Is anything brought back to council? Who's part of the decision making? Who are we consulting with? Is that Northwest Land Conservancy? Has that yet to be defined? I just want to make sure there's some level of oversight for what happens based on appropriate information by experts, of course, but that we don't get blindsided by a huge harvest, and that's not what everybody intended.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. We don't know who we'll contract with to do the work, but it'll be set up in my mind very similar to the SPDAC committee, and that the whole source water
There
protection
will be
process.
citizens.
So there'll be a
involved
citizen
in
committee. Yep.
City point of contact.
Yep. We'll have meetings, and we'll probably have kind of an industry experts team that'll do some of the draft work like we do with SPDAC, and then we bring it to the committee to get a look at it and make modifications to. All of that will go to the council.
And so we don't know who will be at that table, because that becomes important, as we've learned that depends on where you sit at that table for what your interests are, for how you answer questions and risk levels and all that junk. So
Yeah. And you all will determine who sits on that committee.
I'm gonna write that down.
And it'll be based on source water protection plan. It'll build on that.
So it builds on that. That's good.
Yeah,
It's like a step two.
yeah, it's a step closer to implementation. How are we going to manage the forest? Once we identify what the risks are to our watershed and how we can try to mitigate those in general terms, this will put it in more focused, implementable steps.
And it's not part of this contract, I know, but it's something I would like to build into the process. Is that city council would have an opportunity to visit other cities' drinking watersheds on the coast and see how they're managed. Some of us have already looked at a few, and it's very eye-opening. And I don't want people to be afraid or scared of this process because of managing the drinking watershed, because we're one of the last cities on the Oregon coast to get into this, and almost every other, even rural drinking water districts like Arch Cape and Cape Mears, they own theirs and they're managing theirs. So, but I would like to get a good view for all of us of what works, what doesn't work, what elements might work for us.
That's great.
And also to, at the end of it all, have some sort of way that with the new election cycle that it can't all be wiped away. So,
Get on the meetings I go to, she's talking about a future one. And I'm kind of getting that deed restrictions can kind of take care of that.
Mhm.
That's what they tell us often at meetings. That's just what I was gonna say, the committee, well, we need to rent a big bus. The committee, and I thank also you and the city planner and public supervisor Dan Emerson, people who have significant a stake in the process should go. Why not just take the city recorder too?
Very good.
and it can be an exercise in what works and what doesn't work also, right?
Right. And they're all different. And I know we have other things to talk about, but some drinking watersheds allow unlimited recreation. Others, like Astoria, allows no public entrance at all. So, I think before we, as a council, vote on how we want to protect ours, we need to know why they choose different options and how does it work for them or not work for them. Yeah.
All right, item C, review of OLCC annual license.
Hopefully very straightforward. So the OLCC, they launched a new online licensing system, and so it's a good time to take a look at how we do it here. So they provide a list every year of upcoming current liquor license in Rockaway that are up for renewal. And what we'd like to do is each year send you all the list with a recommendation and have the approvals, or the council would also let us know you'd like to ask OLCC to take a pause while we investigate. But typically we have these approvals up on the check register, on the consent calendar this year, renew all the liquor licenses. Right now it's administrative decision staff does, and with OLCC's change, it's nice to get it back where I think it belongs, up to the council.
Yeah.
And it could be simple or something from consent.
These businesses are all in good standing with OLCC.
Yes,
And there's one here that doesn't really, isn't there anymore, so it's not a guarantee that they'll pursue the renewal, correct?
Is that Little?
No, it's the beach bike.
I think they have already pursued it, right? That's why they're on the list.
Or is the renewal date?
yeah. I don't know what their status is. This is what OLCC sends our way.
And so the Beach Bike actually renewed their business registration a couple of months ago with Oregon Secretary of State. So they are, well, not, but they are a recognized
Working on
business.
something.
Yeah.
So they just partnered in together there, because that was Gloria's Beach Bike originally. And then
So it's just listed under Oregon Secretary of State as the Beach Bike.
What is the Dropbox?
Yeah, I didn't know what that was either.
Who
It's a
cars that?
It's a food cart. I think, maybe.
Yeah. But no. What's the-
530 Highway 101.
that's the hotel there where the Indian food is.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. I think it's
I
not
think it
there.
would be right.
The website there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they want a liquor license?
They already have them.
These are renewals.
Yeah, I think everything looks fine, really.
Anyway, on the back page, there's a reason, the only reason we made, recommend to deny the liquor license. And also reasons that OLCC will not consider listed here.
That all pretty black and white.
Yeah.
This is just. Well, it's but I guess.
It's
Straightforward.
yeah. So anyway, that'll be on consent calendar, consent agenda later on tonight. You can pass it on to OLCC for reviews.
So takes here C, we'll go on to D, discussion of proposal from Killamara regarding overflow parking.
I don't have a whole lot to say, but I will say, James Koch, with Tillamara, they own Rockaway Beach Resort. He expressed to me that they have some parking shortages at the resort. And he was interested in seeing if Rockaway could help out with some parking at our Anchor Street lot. I said, I don't know, but you're more than welcome to submit a proposal. I'll bring it to your attention. That's what I've done.
And I would like to kick it off by saying that conversation came from me. I met with James Koch a couple of different times to discuss his parking dilemma. And I suggested a wide variety of options because I am enthused about the idea that and all of us were there for the forum. So we saw it's a nice meeting space, can bring in 70 people. And I thought this is a nice venue to up tourism maybe in the winter months, bring some conferences into town in the winter. And so I processed a lot of things with him, like parking at Manhattan Beach with that parking lot. And I threw in the Anchor Street and just different things and suggested that he talk with Luke about it. But it was just a process of trying to figure out what might work for him. And then I think he and Luke have had a discussion about it since then.
Well, I was on the board of directors for the Rockaway Resort, so I know a lot about Mr. Cook. And I don't think I would feel comfortable giving our parking spaces to them.
Well, I'm not comfortable giving it to anyone for that length of time because we have,
It's sort of beyond control, because these are our main parking spots, so by saying only that they have exclusive rights, that's the language that worries me. It's not really.
I could see, and I mentioned this to the city manager, maybe we have a form on the website, just like we do for the Wayside, to use the Wayside. People, as we know, fill out the form, then they come and we vote on whether to allot that space to them. I could see
For that particular
event, I could see doing something like that for Anchor Street. So occasionally, if he has a big event, he might request it for those dates or something. Fill out the form for it, something, but it is so heavily used for families, and I think it was more in the off shoulder and winter season that he was running it. But still, on a nice sunny weekend, there'll be a lot of parking there and a lot of kids on the playground. So, even this time of year. So
It goes through June 10th, and our tourist season really ticks up with spring break.
in April, yeah.
In April, and you know, the manager and Shepherd and I were talking about it. And you know, what do we say to the other bit?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was saying. That this was just processing and kicking things around of different options and getting a shuttle bus to go back and forth and things. I think what he is doing sometimes now is if a group of people want to have a conference, they schedule a charter bus. Like say it's a group from Portland, they schedule a charter bus and they come in on the charter bus, and the charter bus takes them home to Portland or wherever. And then I also had a meeting with Erica Sears, the deputy director, assistant director of Oregon Visitors Coast Association. And they're planning on doing some shuttle buses to towns from Portland along the coast. So there's a lot of options out there, and this was just one of James Cook's options.
Rockaway Beach Resort always had a parking problem. We never had an ambulance call there. There's no place to park the fire trucks.
And they never corrected it. And there was options that they could have bought space across the street that the fellow that owns the other motel took advantage of and bought it. And now his hotel has parking across the street.
Neil.
And that was an option for Rockaway Resort, but because it was a condominium and they didn't want to spend any money. They didn't have any money to spend.
Was that when it was timeshare?
Yeah.
Well, I want to keep encouraging conferences and conference spaces to come to Rockaway, and especially in the winter. And that is a very nice meeting place there.
But he's going to have to put it ADA approved, and it is not. You have to have ADA.
Yeah, he needs an outdoor.
Yes.
Outside.
That's why
And he tells us it's coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you understand that.
Well, they're not put it outside, it won't work. Well, the condos down there by the high school. The elevator guy, I talked to him, he would have to be there once a month repairing it.
The big cement ones there?
I don't remember that.
We call it the concrete condos, we're always digging through part of them.
Really?
Yeah.
Broke, that's it, busted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think this brings up a larger issue that we need to, it's probably a city staff thing also, but to just work on. That is to have a policy about renting the Wayside. I mean, not the Wayside, Anchor Street. And to have, I think it's going to become more and more popular, and more groups are going to want to reserve it for different dates. And so I think the bigger conversation is we just need to have a policy and a form for people to fill out.
File on here.
Yeah.
And we're getting real close. We can sort out the EV contract. make sure we want to reserve when we reserve the Anchor Street parking lot, it's that center section, we can do that. So we're close. And so we can get there. I mean, it's a public parking lot. That's the whole idea of it. It's first come, first serve, open to the public, businesses, visitors. I don't like the idea of excluding others from using a public
Yeah.
parking spot. Paid
That's
for
our recipe
through
for-
tax dollars, and I don't want to create a administrative.
Yeah.
thing for the staff to play parking, who's supposed to be there, who's not, when did they get in, or should they be moved?
Yeah, city shall ensure that requested number of spaces are timely marked. And I don't see any fee associated with the use of it either. So I'm not a fan. I'm a fan of them being successful. I agree with everything you're saying. Not so against, but I'm not a fan of giving exclusive.
If I don't really hear a consensus to really move forward on this.
No, but can discuss some of the things we discussed or how.
I will definitely follow up.
Maybe it's more like event to event, just like.
Parking space, we can use that.
If we have time for the last item, I do have something we should.
Yeah.
That's out.
Yeah, we've got time.
Okay, excellent.
We got plenty of time.
Yeah.
I've got one thing.
We're awash.
So we have some information in script for you all for the upcoming your deliberations and decision making on the levy. Some suggested motions. I want to certain all of you are aware that once again you have to declare any biases. So
Yeah, can I make this, I really have a problem with that because I was involved with this when I first came onto the planning commission. So I'm not comfortable making a decision on this because I don't want to put the city in a position of it coming back to us because I voted on something I shouldn't have.
well, I know we had conversations about that with our land attorney.
And it was all right with him. Okay.
Yeah, you just have to declare it.
And so we've got in your council packets, we've got the minutes from the special meeting. If anybody needs to, wants to refresh what was said. So, but in addition to announcing any biases, you want to talk about any ex parte contacts? If you've had no new ex parte contacts since the last meeting, at the very bottom, you have something you can state that basically says, "Hey, check the minutes. I've already disclosed these. If you received any emails between now and then and read them, opened and read them, you'll want to call those out as new ex parte contacts. Maybe you received emails and didn't read. You can state that. But it's important that we keep this pretty tight.
I didn't read them, but I didn't delete them.
So work when in doubt. Anyway, that's what I wanted to cover. That'll be the first part of the discussion on that later on tonight.
Well, I gotta tell you that when we first had that hearing, that I mentioned that my wife didn't want to buy that house because I was her concern over being able to evacuate for a tsunami. And then I've done more and more digging and thinking about that myself, and so do I retract from that, or because it's nothing to do with what I was talking to my wife about. It's the things I learned from the fire department.
Yeah, I think to be safe, restate it. Yeah. Okay. If you have any questions. Before we- There.
Yeah, I guess we're not to discuss it any further. We're just supposed to somebody makes a motion, is that correct?
Well, discussion is definitely okay. Yeah, but
So we're
we'll take it
discussing it at the next meeting.
Yeah.
Do you mean discussing as in having them get up and give testimony?
No, I mean us.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So I'll structure this section of the meeting to facilitate discussion.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not go down, make a motion and vote. It's go down and discuss. So I've got a script that I will
So we'll discuss it during the council meeting.
during the council meeting.
But the record's full, so we'll take in any new information, no public testimony.
Right.
Staff will be there to answer questions. The attorney will be there remotely to answer questions, help guide us. I'll be there for what it's worth. And
Worth a lot. Worth its weight in gold. Did you want to talk about the second page of your handout?
The motion.
I think we're approaching dangerous territory. What's your question?
But, nope, it's there for them to read. That's fine.
But not about what we will say in our discussion, but just the procedure. When you say that we will discuss it, do you mean like first there's a motion and a second, and then as normally we have a
So
discussion?
the discussion,
There'll be discussion before the motion.
this is different.
But we're discussing it, yeah. Okay. Can we move on?
Discussing arm wrestling. I'm sorry, go ahead, Council Franklin.
Can we move on to other topics?
Sure.
This concern. Just a question I have for the two things, the revised MOU that's gonna be a part of the council meeting, as it probably would have been nice to have the previous version or a red line version so we could see what changed.
I'm sorry.
Not necessarily have it.
There should have been a red line in there for you.
I didn't. Did you guys see them? Nothing was wildly outrageous or anything. I think it's got some updates on here. So one of the updates on page 4 of 5 talks about group completed watershed analysis in partnership with current landowners. Among the attributes mapped were, for example, land cover, stream classification, soil classification, slope and soil erodibility, wetlands, fisheries, roads, and infrastructure. And anyhow, I'm wondering who is privy to that map. I don't recall thinking parts to that.
Yeah, I don't know that we've ever seen that. We were late to the game with that group. We only joined in January,
Okay,
so that might have been something they worked
Yeah.
on prior to.
it's pretty astounding the city wasn't involved early on. Glad we are now. So can we get that map?
I can ask for it. Conviction.
I'm confident we can get it
Okay.
with conviction.
And,
Yeah.
and part of the MOU, my hopes are that we would just extend the date on that MOU.
Right.
And the other partners wanted to make some minor changes. And so that's what we ended up with. And, there was no time to workshop this in November. We didn't have it till probably a week ago. So we're just up against the deadline and working with
Yeah, and
other partners.
there's nothing seems without, knowing exactly change. If
There
my
were
own,
dates, there were dates that have passed. Probably the biggest thing that's changed in it is there are dates referenced in the previous one that have passed. And so they're not relevant.
on that same page, number 2, the group is
And
complete.
we might even be able to get you. It'll help the red line before we get it downstairs. So,
Thank you. The group has completed a draft outlining potential conservation options for the property and mapping detailing potential conservation easement harvest. That makes sense. Stream setbacks and conservation zones. Page 4. So it's a lovely sentence, mapping and detailing potential conservation easement, and then the word harvest.
You wanna look at mine?
That word.
Oh, she's reading.
And this would maybe something that's been done, whatever, I just want to understand what that means.
yeah, that work was probably done. Well, no, it was for. What we were involved.
It sounds like a fancy way of saying some street stuff, but
Going to farm. They can harvest if they choose to, and they're gonna voluntarily limit themselves in some capacity in what they're doing the property. I think we're somewhat fortunate they're willing to do that.
In May, when we signed, in May, when we signed the letter of intent with Nuveen, there was some stipulations about harvesting during this next 2-year period. And that. Like there was spraying and harvesting.
yeah, the spring is still in.
So this is separate from our letter of intent to buy. I was around and part of a group that put the original MOU together. And Rockaway Beach Citizens for Watershed Protection represented the city in the original MOU, not with the city's permission, they just did. Because the city chose not to join, so that group chose to join. So some of the language that is in the original MOU is a result of negotiations with them and all the different timber companies involved.
And the intent has changed over the last year.
Yeah.
Really what.
We have a different letter of intent beyond this original 2019 one, right?
Yeah, we just signed one in May. Yeah, and that one is the one that mentions voluntarily not cutting and spraying.
And none of these are enforceable either way, so,
No.
but it's just nice to be clear about what it means.
Absolutely. It's really about this group of entities, Jetty Creek Working Group, that meet periodically, that were the kind of the seed group to get us moving forward and into discussions with Nuveen, Sustainable Northwest, etc. So the document that matters the most, in my opinion, is the letter of intent with Nuveen and the work we're doing. This is just this group gets together and has conversation.
And it will. So it is. This MOU has been the basis for getting everyone at the table to get where we are right now. That makes sense.
This is utilized now as a great reason to get all the stakeholders in the same room or in the same phone call once a month and talk about what we're doing, being engaged. And so that's been a big shift from the working group actually working to the working group collaborating with the city, having consultants and grants that are funding the actual work now.
And hopefully, Stimson Lumber Company will join the conversation at some point too.
Yes. Yes.
They have, but they seem to have the way for some reason. I mean, I don't know if your opinion is different to Member Shepherd, but for a while they were attending these meetings regularly. At stopped and tour their what their posture is with the upper portion of the Getty Creek water. But it is an opportunity. They get invited. So it's a way for us to be engaged with them. Their participation is informal.
Thank you for that. That's cool.
I wondered if there's any other council to bring.
No, not for tonight.
I had a conversation about the Oregon Medical Resource Corps that has been headquartered in about an idea that she has to leverage some things they've done. So, and I asked her just to send me an email about it. So let me just read what she sent me. And this is from Carolyn Walters. I have joined Oregon Medical Resource Corp, which operates out of Mahalan. I'm deeply concerned that we do not have any local emergency shelters, medical supplies in the event of an emergency. Oregon Medical Resources Corp has, on grant funds, obtained 2 trailers that are stocked identically. These trailers would more than likely not be able to get to Rockaway in the event of a community crisis. I'd like to arrange a time date that we can get a trailer brought down for city staff and counselors to take a look at. It's been very well thought out, and we would be welcome to use all of the plans information that is currently being used to the north. So I think the idea of an opportunity for them to show what they've done, and you can invite obviously Captain Grace, Chief Hesse, and other staff, and it potentially could even make it a community opportunity, but to take a look at what they've got, and
That's perfect for when we get the new fire station too.
well, or even potentially before that. So is other councilors open to me working, Carolyn, to?
I want our emergency department to be at the head of the table.
And she's had conversations, and Chief Hesse is.
I don't want them to be at the head of the table. I want more than conversations with them.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I can make that happen.
Because they have emergency management plans, and I don't want to jump in the middle. That is something that may not fit in with the plans and the budget that they have worked on.
Okay. Good. All right.
And so what are we trying to get out of this? Is it a purchase she wants?
She wants to build awareness. That's all she wants to do, is build awareness. Well, I'll take it to Chief Hesse and
That's not on our radar. Purchasing whatever this is, I've never heard of it.
Okay.
So.
All right, any other workshop business?
No.
Okay. Need a motion to adjourn the meeting? It's moved and seconded. Council President Sheik,
Yes.
Council Franken,
Yes.
Council Hayes, Council Martine,
Yes.
Council McGinnis.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. We are adjourned at 5:33 on Wednesday, December 11th, 2024.